Hello, Sonia. My name's Amber. Can you hear me? Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, no worries. Hi, my name's Amber. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing all right. Have you done this before?
I not with you guys, but I've
Okay.
done Zoom meetings. I haven't done a webinar before.
Do you want to test out any screen sharing or are you okay?
Sure, let me try this again. I was trying to
I have to,
okay,
I'm making you a co-host.
okay. Go lay down. Go lay down.
And just so you know, I will probably just make you the host at the end of the session so I can go start another one and you
Okay.
can just close it when you're done.
Okay.
So yeah, let's go ahead and check out screen sharing for you.
I think I'm just going to leave it like that. Can you see the screen okay?
Yeah, it looks great.
Okay, cool. Um, I'm just going to leave it at that then. And actually, if I'm talking softly, can you hear me okay?
No, you're loud and clear for
Okay,
me.
good.
Yeah.
I've got allergies today, so I don't want to talk too loud and have a coughing fit.
Yeah, that would be fun in front of an audience as well.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just so you're aware of the flow, a few minutes before noon, I'm actually going to take control of the screen and play a video, an introductory video. And then once that is over, I will hand it off to you. And I will stick around if you have any questions. You should be able to kick people off the chat if you need to, but I will be there as well to kick people off the chat. I will post a little thing to tell people to be decent. and, um, and it should all be you after the video is done playing.
Okay, sounds good.
And if you have any questions, let me know.
All right, will do. I think everything should be cool.
Cool. And you're the only presenter, right?
Correct.
Okay, great. Thanks. Hey, I'm back. I just want to make sure you're feeling comfortable and ready to go. The video I'm going to play is 4 minutes long. And yeah. Oh, I can't hear you.
All right, that was my fault. I won't do that again.
Great.
Yeah, we're
glad to
good.
get that out of the way.
Right? 4 minutes is fine. That'll give people time to join us.
Right. Okay. So let's see here.
So can the attendees hear us right now?
I don't know.
Okay.
um,
Well, in case you guys can hear us, we're going to get started here pretty shortly.
all right, I will.
Thank you, Squeaky Tiki. Good to know. I've done plenty of Zoom meetings, but this is my first webinar. Right? I'm looking forward to sharing. So I know at noon, they're going to start the video for DSW, and then that's a 4-minute video. And as soon as that's done, then we'll get right into it.
Hello, I'm Eric Matisik, co-chair of Denver Startup Week. Last year, we were able to bring the global audience together for Denver Startup Week, and this year, we're excited to welcome that global audience back as we celebrate and showcase the best of entrepreneurship that the Denver ecosystem in Colorado has to offer, in Denver and beyond. There are lots to explore this week, but most importantly, we're excited that you're joining us. We have nearly 50 sponsor companies who contribute to make Denver Startup Week possible. Let's show our love for these companies today and all week long. Thanks to our headquarters and title sponsor, Amazon, and our title sponsors whose leadership makes this week come to life, Capital One Cafe, the Downtown Denver Partnership, Fluid Truck, Hotel Engine, and WeWork, and our track sponsors who've made all the great content you're hearing today possible, which includes our founder track sponsor, Kickstart, our growth track sponsor, Friday Health Plans, developer track sponsor, Quizlet, product track sponsor, Palantir, design track sponsor, Battery 621 and the Public Works, people track sponsor, Exactly, and the spotlight event sponsor, Strat Labs. Our headline event sponsors are bringing this excitement to the entire week. Thank you to B-Side Fund, Colorado Public Radio, Comcast, Coors Brewing Company, Denver Pavilions, Entrepreneurship at the University of Denver, Gusto, JP Morgan Chase, Method, Moss Adams, Pi Insurance, Promontory Mortgage Path, Red Bull Basement, Southwest, Tattered Cover, and the VF Venture Foundry. Finally, thank you to our sponsors and member sponsors who are listed on the screen, and thank you for your support of Denver Startup Week. Now, let's get to it.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Denver Startup Week. I am Michael Ostro, and I'm the Maker Track Chair, as well as a member of the Denver Startup Week Organizing Committee. Thank you so much for joining Denver Startup Week for our 10th anniversary. At Denver Startup Week, we strive to make all of our sessions a place where attendees can connect, learn, and grow, and that is regardless of age, gender identity, gender expression, race, ability, or sexual orientation. A special thank you goes out to our sponsors for their support and helping us make Denver Startup Week free for everyone and accessible to all. And I also want to thank Agora.io. They are the MakerTrack sponsor, so thank you, Agora, for making this happen. And thank you for joining us. Enjoy Denver Startup Week and make the most out of it.
Hey, Sonia, you're on mute. It's all you.
All right. Well, there we go. Hopefully I won't do that again. Well, thank you very much. And good morning, everyone. I'm going to share my screen so you know you're in the right place. So I'm Sonia Doing, and I'm an award-winning author, an award-winning publisher, and yeah, I'm here today to share how to get your book written and self-published. Unfortunately, I also have really bad allergies today. It always happens in between the seasons. So I'm sucking on a Ricola and I'm sipping on hot tea with honey. So I want to do my best to try to get through this hour. I'm also talking a little bit softly, but I understand you guys can hear me okay. So we're going to go with that. Now, a little bit more about me. I actually got involved with Denver Startup Week. I think it was 3 years ago. I feel like COVID totally messed up my timeline. I don't know, maybe it was 3 years ago. My company was accepted into Creative Startups lab that they were having out at Denver because I'm also an entrepreneur. I have a publishing company and I run the Women's Thriller Writers Association. So I know what it's like to be an entrepreneur, but I was out there at Denver Startup Week. I spent a lot of time at the labs working on my business. So I attended as many DSW events as I could, and it was amazing. So I'm really happy to be able to share, to give back to you guys as a community. All right, I'll check that out for my allergies. Thank you. But let's see. And I'm going to cover as much as I can in this hour that we have, because there is a lot to talk about. I'm going to try to get through it all. I want to talk about you for a moment, because I'm sure most of you here are entrepreneurs. You either have an idea for a book, or maybe you've written one, you don't know what to do with it. But most of you, I'm going to focus on getting that idea down. So if you've already written a book, just hang on. We'll get to that part of how to self-publish. But you are also an expert in what you're going to write. So I know a lot of people may be nervous about writing, don't want to call themselves a writer, or are worried about publishing that first book. So if you see the screen that I'm sharing, I wrote my nonfiction book. It's the one in the middle, How to Write a Novel, after I written my first novel, and I wasn't even sure I should publish it yet, because I was like, am I an expert? Well, I had written a novel, so I kind of was. I mean, now I've written 3, so I definitely am more of an expert than I was. So just don't worry too much today about whether you're an expert. Let's just write it and worry about that part later. But I want you guys to feel confident in what you're doing. So you are an expert in what you're doing. And I also want to suggest everybody have a notebook and pen available, because we are going to do a little bit of a sprint here in a minute to work on your idea. It's going to be a short sprint. And I am going to look at your questions as you guys post them. I'm going to stop. Oh, good. I am going to stop every once in a while and check them out, and then try to answer any as we go along as well. It's going to be hard since we've only got an hour, but I'm going to stop here in a minute before we do our sprint and take a look at your questions and comments. And by the way, I also have a giant dog who is going to interrupt us, I'm sure, because he wants to go sit on the balcony and bark at the other dogs. So you have to let me alone for an hour, baby. All right. But get a pen and paper. And I want you to think about your book as a business, right? We know that startups, we have to get input to make our startups better. Same thing for a book. We're gonna work this book as if it was a startup almost. All right, so get pen and paper. If you don't have pen and paper, you can use a computer, use the notes on your phone. I'm gonna real quick look at the questions that are in the chat. Looking to publish a client's grandfather's World War II diary. Oh, wow. Okay, that's awesome. And then I'm about halfway through writing my book on innovation in science. That's from Kay. Awesome. And of course, I can't type. Misspellings are not my norm. Don't worry. I don't look at misspelling. I mean, we're all online. We're all typing really fast to share. So don't worry about misspellings. And in fact, working on your first book here, don't worry about fixing it right away, right? We're writing messy first versions, and that's okay, because that's what we expect to have, right? So what I'm going to do, probably something a little different than what other people have been doing in their webinars, pardon me, is I want you to get started. Excuse me, if you haven't started your book yet, or maybe you've half finished it, maybe you need to work on the rest of your ideas. We're going to take 5 minutes to write down as many ideas as you can for your book. So for example, and I'm going to put this up here, when we get started, I'm going to time us for 5 minutes. I've got my piece of paper ready. I am going to work on the book I should have written already, which is editing your messy novel. I keep putting this off because I felt like I'm not a good editor, a self-editor on my own work. But I do it, right? Because I've written 3 novels. So I'm going to write notes. Sorry. So I'm going to set a 5-minute timer. And what I want you to do is to write down as many ideas for your book as you can. If maybe you don't have an idea for your book yet, start writing ideas for your book. What do people ask you about all the time? What do you share information about? So any and all things that you need to work on for your book, we're gonna brainstorm in 5 minutes. So I'm gonna set a timer for 5 minutes. Hopefully I don't have another coughing fit. All right, so 5 minutes. I'm going to turn off the sound just so I can blow my nose, because you guys don't need to hear that or hear me cough. But when the 5 minutes is up, you'll hear me say our 5 minutes is up. So you're going to sprint as fast as you can, as many ideas about your book as possible. Ready, set, sprint. And if anyone's joining us, we're doing a 5 minutes coming up with ideas. Maybe it's a chapter, maybe it's things that you have to say in your book. So just go ahead and start making some notes about your book. We got about 3 minutes and 40 seconds left. Okay, for those of you who just joined us, we've got almost 3 more minutes left to brainstorm, write down your ideas for your book. Meanwhile, when we're done with the sprint, I'm going to first answer questions or anything in the chat, and then we're going to go on and talk about what to do next with this list that we've got. Got 1 minute and 50 seconds. Okay, 1 minute and 12 left. Forty seconds. Fifteen seconds. All right, that's it. Our time is up for sprinting. Hopefully you guys, and if you're still coming up with ideas, feel free to keep working and just listen in as we move on here. I do want to see, let's see. Oh, awesome. Okay, so people are chatting in the chat. That's awesome about Allison's idea. And okay, so we don't have any more questions in the Q&A, so that's good. We'll keep going. So now we have some ideas written on paper, or maybe you did it on a computer. Now what do we do with this, right? We have our ideas. So what I do is I would take this and put it into a program to work to organize these ideas into chapters, into notes. But I want to take a step back and talk about my title, right? Initially, I was thinking my title for my book is going to be Editing Your Messy Novel. But that's actually, it's not a great title because we need to think about, unless we're famous and we have millions of followers, which I don't know about you, you might not. We need to pick a title for our nonfiction that people are going to search for. So in my example, I'm going to change it to, like if someone was typing online looking for help, they might look for how to edit a messy novel. So that's the title I'm going to use. I'm going to use something more specific. So, and obviously you don't have to have a title right now. You can think about it because you've got lots of time to write, edit, review, and we'll talk about all that. But just to think about your title, make it search engine optimization worthy, right? So what are people looking for? But to take these notes and to organize them, think about what program do you want to write your book in. So I've always used Scrivener. I love it because I can organize my chapters. You can move things around easily. You can put your research in it. So all my stuff is held in one spot. Or you can use Word, or you can use Pages if you're a Mac user like me. I am just going to share a link in the chat for Scrivener. If you want to check it out, if you do use this link, it is my affiliate link, just FYI. I get like a couple of bucks if you buy Scrivener through that. Oh yeah, spell it. I'm going to post it here so you can see the spelling for Scrivener. You're welcome. Yeah, so Scrivener is I love the program, especially for fiction, because I'll organize, there's a character section, I'll organize all my characters. And then also if I forget a character, how to spell it, their name, I could just scroll down to the character list and it's right there. So Scrivener to me is a huge time saver, much more for fiction than for nonfiction. You might easily be able to write yours in Word. So don't feel like you have to spend money on a special program. I just love the way Scrivener organizes. Now, if you get it, I do suggest you check out their tutorials they have inside Scrivener, inside the program, and just worry about the basics. Don't worry about all their bells and whistles. They got a lot of cool things, but just for the basics, they're awesome. So that's how I organize. Let me go back to my notes, make sure I don't miss anything important here. Okay, so I talked about title. What's next, right? Organizing, but let's talk about writing. How do you get written? How do you get it written? One thing I do is I will, number one, put time in my calendar. It's not going to happen, right? Unless, I'm a little old-fashioned here. I have one of these. I put everything in writing in my calendar. It's not going to happen, right? It's not going to happen unless you put it in your calendar. So find time, but also connecting with other writers helps. Like if I know I'm going to go write at a cafe, I'll post it in my Facebook group for my fiction writers. Hey, I'm going to be here, and they'll come and join me if they can. That's great because you set aside time to just step away and to write. Pardon me, that's the Ricola, which is really helping my throat right now. So yeah, meet with other writers or set aside time. In a couple of days, I'm going on a train ride with another writer just so we can write, because it gets me away from the dishes, right? The dog's going to be with my dad, so I don't have to worry about him. So think about ways that you can schedule time just for writing. Another thing is when you sit down to write, especially for the first time, you might be like, where do I start? Don't worry about starting at the beginning. Just sit down, do what we just did, set a timer for 5 minutes and just start writing. Don't even worry about whether it's the first chapter or the third chapter, whatever is at the top of your head, just start from there. And that helps me. I tend to, especially when I'm doing the first ugly draft, I do a lot of sprint writing. And then I spend time in between all the sprints connecting what I sprint wrote before and what I sprint wrote later. And you want to write from beginning to end. You don't want to go back and keep editing, because what happens is you get a little frustrated. You'll go back and edit and your story's not finished yet, or your book's not finished yet. And you get frustrated because you're not finished. So just worry about finishing it from beginning to end, and then go back and edit, and then fix things that need to be fixed. So I say embrace the ugly, the messy, lock your editor away for later. That happens when you get back to editing. All right, so you're editing. All right, so we talked about, writing. We'll talk about editing now. Editing, right? Once you finish writing it from beginning to end, then I'd say go back. Well, first of all, let it sit for at least a month. Give it a break. Let it, let the ingredients mash together kind of thing, and then come back a month later and read it. Because oftentimes we see things we didn't see the first time we read through it. And if you let it sit for a month, you might even forget some of the things you wrote. And some of it's going to be brilliant, some of it's going to be awful, and that's fine. So let it sit and then go back and edit, rewrite it if you have to, put chapters together in a different way if you need to. But then, then we need to get input on our story, on our book. And I would suggest don't give your book to friends or family for their input because they don't understand the writing process. So you get one of two responses. Either they're like, oh, it's great, and that's it. You don't get any constructive feedback. Or a friend or family member who doesn't understand the writing process looks at the book and sees that it's an ugly, messy first draft and says, my God, this person should never write. They're terrible. And they want to be honest and they feel like they're doing you a favor and they're like, it's terrible. And that just, depresses all of us who are writers and we never want to write again. So don't give it to friends and family. Instead, find a review group. When you review with other writers are going to be honest, but they're not going to be like, you should never write. No, they understand the writing process. They understand that your book's going to get better, that you're going to become a better writer the more you write. So I am going to share a Facebook group. I have a self-publishing Facebook group, and that you guys could connect in and create your own review group. I run a fiction writing review group. And let me find this link real quick. And we have rules. And so let's say I'm the author that day that they're reviewing. As the author, I don't say anything. I'm a sponge. It's like listening to people give me feedback on my startup, right? I want to hear what they have to say in an honest way. And the reviewers, they're going to give me one thing they liked about my story, and then 3 things that they didn't understand or didn't work for them or didn't make sense, right? So they're focused on the work, right? Not me as a writer. So you want to find, I'm going to suggest if you want to get into a review group, that maybe search online for a nonfiction review group or join this Facebook group, and then you could self-organize into a nonfiction writing group. And I just shared the link in the chat. And for those of you who are seeing this later as a recording, I'm going to have all the links on a slide. So someone's asking, how do you ensure your review group doesn't take any ideas? I do not ask anyone to sign an NDA. Basically, even when I run fiction events, I will share ideas for my stories with people because no one else is going to write it like me. And even if someone, there are all kinds of books out there about how to write a novel. People are going to buy this one because it connects with them. If you feel, if you're sharing an idea on an invention, that's something else. That's a patent issue, and that's something you need to talk to an attorney about. But if you're writing a book on marketing ideas, to be honest, I've worked with other people who work in marketing, and we considered writing a book together to make it more powerful. So I don't worry about people stealing my ideas. It's all going to be very different from mine, what I write. I think it's going to depend on what you're working on. So good question. But if you're looking for a nonfiction group of honest writers who are going to share their feedback, you do need a review group. You're welcome. So that's review group. The next thing is you want to find an editor. And whether that's your cousin who's really good at editing grammar, or maybe it's a colleague or coworker who's good at editing as well, and you can exchange work. Or maybe you're ready to pay for an editor. We all know we can find people at Fiverr or Upwork. If you Now, I am a member of a group called Writer Gals. Tickle in my throat. Take a sip real quick. And we are a group of New Mexico writers who have been professional writers for up to 3 years, at least. So if you're ready to hire an editor, I'm going to share that link in the chat. But then, yeah, just keep in mind, you can also always find someone in your, maybe reaching out through your Facebook page and saying, hey, is there someone out there who wants to edit for me? And you could find a friend who's willing to do it for free. Just remember, you do usually get what you pay for. Coughing fit. Okay, that's fun. All right, we have a half hour to go. I'm going to make this. All right, so editor, definitely find an editor for your work. Cool. And Gina Santee says, hit her up on Facebook if you want to form a peer review group for nonfiction. Thank you. All right, so that was editing. Excuse me. The next thing I want to mention is, especially if you're writing a nonfiction, make sure to have a call to action at the end of your book. If you've ever written a website, ever written a blog post, you need to have a call to action and everything. In this case, are you writing a book about the best way to package, shipping materials or package your stuff when you're shipping it, right? At the end of the book, if you're working as a specialist in that field and you want people to hire you, maybe at the end you have a link to your website. Sorry. Or maybe you want people to sign up for your email list. So you say at the end, sign up for my email list and you'll get a checklist on the best packaging products you can use, blah, 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 that sort of thing. So at the end of your book, call to action. I'd say take a moment to write on your notes. I'm going to blow my nose for a second. Blasted allergies, man. Okay. I'm going to pop in my next Ricola here too. All right, so that's call to action. Now let's talk about the cover. Now, the nice thing is if you're just doing an ebook and not worrying about print, you only have to worry about the front cover. As I talk around my Ricola. So think about, you want your cover to convey what's inside, right? So hopefully when you look at this book, you can tell it's fiction, right? This is an adventure thriller fiction in the jungle. And actually I have an artist that I hire for 90% of my covers. She definitely does all my Idol Maker series books and short stories. So there's that. But if you're doing nonfiction, right, it could be a little simpler. This is one that she did for my How to Write a Novel. She also did this one for my friend Ben Anderson. He wrote Seneca 21 on the Shortness of Life. So if you do have an image in the background, make sure the text can be seen. And this is not one of my books or anything that I've done. This is just another example of a nonfiction, really, really simple. So I will definitely check out Wish Garden Tinctures after we're done here. I'm putting it on my notes right now. All right, so more about covers. Number one, we know, again, you can hire someone through Fiverr or whatever. I love the fact that I have a personal connection to my cover artists and art. You can, my suggestion would be reach out through your personal Facebook page and see if there's someone who's interested in designing a cover for you. Especially if they're just starting out, they may not charge you as much for the cover. You can use Canva. Maybe you don't want to pay anyone. You just want to do the work yourself. Canva.com, and I will share the link in the chat, is a really great place. I use Canva when I'm writing short stories. I'm not going to make a lot of money off of a short story, so paying for a cover is really difficult for me for that. I'm only making like 30 cents per image, or sorry, per sale of the short story. So it doesn't make a lot of business sense. For branding though, all of my short stories that are in my Toy the Gods Idol Maker series all get done by the same cover artists so that they all have the same feel. So they have the same kind of branding attached to them. But yeah, check out canva.com. You can upload your own images. Maybe you have an image in mind for your cover. Or, reach out to Facebook. If you want to know more, I'd say I'm going to share my email address later. Gotta take a sip here. We're going to get through this hour, I promise. All right, so if you want to know more about cover artists, I have several that I use that I'm happy to share their info, but you'd have to email me. Leslie Riley does those covers, the Toy the Gods right there. I had another artist, if you see this image here, she shared that on Facebook. She did it for Inktober. And I loved it so much, I bought it from her to use as a cover. I just don't want to say, you got it, Sabrina. I will check that out. I just want to say, when you purchase a cover from an artist, make sure that you're purchasing the copyrights to the image. And I've had to, and make sure you do your research, because I've had to instruct artists on what that means. Because I had one artist who was like, well, I'm not giving you any rights. And I'm like, well, then I can't use it, but thanks. So I guess I won't buy anything from you. Places like Fiverr and like that cover that, right? Because you're hiring someone specifically for the work. You own the copyrights to the work, but just make sure that you have that conversation with someone you're hiring outside of Fiverr or Upwork. All right, so that's a cover. Let's talk about self-publishing ebooks. Woo, we're to that part now. So you have a lot of choices. You could, especially if you have a large following, just publish a PDF to your website and use a program like Gumroad to sell the book to people. I have a friend, she's a blogger who basically did that. She's a huge following. So she sold, I don't know, a lot of books just through her website. She didn't need it on Amazon. Taking another sip. And wait, where was it going? So yeah. Talking about your website. So basically you can sell it directly on your website as a PDF. Not a lot of work to do that. The next step is to offer it through Amazon or through places like Barnes and Noble's Nook or Apple Books, right? And so there's a couple ways to do this. I'm going to share the Amazon link. So if you're going to publish to Amazon, this is where you go, kdp.amazon.com. Actually, let me change my page here. And then basically when you go in, the first thing they're going to ask is your bank account, because they want to make sure they pay you for anything you sell. So you can't upload anything until you put bank account information in there. But once you go in there and you create your first ebook, there are a few things that you have to have figured out first. So we'll go through that. But also, Amazon is not the only place to publish, but if you're going to do Kindle Select, right? When people go on to Amazon and they're looking for books, they can go and get Kindle Select or Kindle Unlimited, right? They can pick up your book for through Kindle Unlimited without paying for it if they have that subscription. That is when you are doing Kindle only. Can't sell your book on your website, can't sell it anywhere else. So if you select Kindle Select in the Kindle store, you can't publish it anywhere else. The way Kindle makes that better is the more pages people read, the more money you make from your book. So that's if a lot of people are downloading and reading your book. So keep that in mind. Where else can you publish? Yes, you can publish on multiple platforms. So let me share that link. I use Draft2Digital, and Draft2Digital will send it to Nook, Apple Books, all those other places. It will also send it to Amazon if you want, but Amazon is a little more tricky. So I do Amazon separately, and then I do Draft2Digital. I publish what they call widely. The thing is, to be honest, I make 90% of my sales through Amazon. I do still make sales through the other platforms. It is another way for people to see your writing, what you're doing. So I go through the work of publishing it everywhere. What I will do is when I first publish a book, I publish it to Amazon first for 90 days. I do just the Amazon direct or select, Kindle Select. And then after that 90 days, I take it off Kindle Select and then I publish wider because I tend to do a lot of marketing those first 90 days. And most people buy from Amazon. So that's my marketing plan. So I just sent that Draft2Digital link. Yeah, I love Draft2Digital. They've been working great for me for publishing widely. Now, some things we need to think about before we upload our manuscript to any of these publishing places. The nice thing is you don't need to do a ton of formatting for an ebook, right? Really simple. You don't have to worry about page numbers. Think about it. When someone opens their Kindle, they can choose whatever font size they want. So page numbers mean nothing in a Kindle, right? So we don't have to worry about page numbering or headers or footers, which can be a huge pain in Microsoft. I'm going to take a quick break to clear my throat. So for an ebook, the two important things are formatting your chapter headings as a header, whether you're using Pages or Microsoft Word. To be honest, I really love a program called Vellum, and I'll type it in here. I've been using now Scrivener. Okay, I should take a step back. If you're using Scrivener to organize your book, they've had a really great new they have some new compile features that help you export your story into a great format. So if you have Scrivener, you may not need to worry about formatting at all. I'm fairly certain you don't have to. But I bought Scrivener before Okay, I'm back. I bought Scrivener before they had all these updates. And so they really didn't have a really great formatting tool. So I purchased this program called Vellum, and I put the name in the comments or in the chat. And it does a really great job of just you put in your Word document, excuse me, and export it. And they export it as a file that works really great in ebook. They also do a great paperback formatting if you don't want the headache of trying to format it in Word. Which, believe me, I've done that. I am considered an expert in Word. But I would rather do a million other things other than spend time having to format chapter after chapter, right? So formatting, again, just make sure all your font is the same font and the same size in your text of your book. And then format your chapter headings as headers. And that's the basics of what you need to upload as an ebook. Now, you also should think about a table of contents. Now, Kindle, when you go into KDP, it does not create a table of contents for you, whereas Draft to Digital can. I tend to design my own table of contents. So meaning it's got to be a way for people to click on a link and take them to that chapter. So, yeah, so that's basically formatting. Table of contents, same font, same size of font. And again, Vellum can also develop your table of contents. So if you're using that program, and I forget how much it was $250 if you want to export print books from Vellum, but it's less expensive if you're just doing ebook. Other things to consider is your description for your book, right? You're going to have to put that in there before you publish your book in Amazon or Draft to Digital. And when you do that, I want you to again think about search engine optimization. How are people searching for your book? Right, those first 200 words in your description are going to be very important, but also make sure you're not writing for a bot, you're writing for people who are reading it. So make sure it's descriptive. I'd also suggest maybe checking out Google Trends to see what people are searching for. You know, try your title in there, see if other things pop up that are related to that search, and try to use those words in your book description. That's description. And then you need to pick your categories. So you can pick 2 categories. All right, and so the screen share that I'm sharing, you can see an example. And this is just like the first 1/3 of the nonfiction categories that are available. And then you see there's a little plus sign next to architecture. No, archetype, sorry, or art. There's a plus sign next to art. If you click that plus sign, there's additional subcategories underneath art. And when you're thinking about categories, first of all, you pick 2. Amazon's going to also put you into a category that it wants to put you in. So, for example, my friend wrote a short story about an angel. Because I think the word angel was in her description, it put her, besides the 2 categories that she chose, it put into Christian fiction. Although it didn't necessarily belong there, she didn't really necessarily agree with that. And you can contact Amazon and ask them to change that if you feel that it totally doesn't match. But also when you're picking your categories, think about what has the least competition. And so, for example, my publishing company, we publish books with strong female characters. And we just, in my company's called Plot Duckies. And we just published an author, Ronan Romero, and his sci-fi, it's an epic sci-fi novel. And he has an LGBTQ character what's a trans character in the novel. And so I put it under LGBTQ fiction because there isn't a lot of competition for that category. And so, you know, doing his own marketing, his book came out in the top 10 bestsellers for Amazon in the LGBTQ science fiction category. Oh my God. I thought I had the sound off. I'm so sorry you had to listen to that. I know I have 12 more minutes and I want to make sure you guys have more. So think about the category where you don't have as much competition. But make sure that it meets that category too, right? So we're not going to pick LGBTQ if it doesn't meet that category. So expect to spend some time looking through categories and narrowing down what works best for your book. All right, we have 11 minutes left. What questions do you guys have? I know I haven't talked about print. Print's a little more complicated, but I want to see if you guys have any questions before I go on to talk about print. And I'm so sorry about, of course, I have to have the worst allergy attack right the day I'm giving a presentation. All right, so I don't see any new questions. Oh, if you sell on your own website, is there any way to ensure it's hold on one second. Okay, hopefully you guys didn't hear me coughing. I keep trying to push my button here. Let me go back. If you're selling on your website, is there any way to be seen in ranking charts? Like, how do bestseller lists get compiled? That is an excellent question. I'm afraid that's an answer I don't have. Like, I know how to sell on Amazon and how to get in the bestseller rankings. I don't know about like the New York Times bestseller list, like what that looks like. So you might want to Google how to get on the bestseller list. I don't know if you can self-publish just to your website and get on that list. So that I'm afraid that's going to be just some research on your part. Let's talk about barcode. So the nice thing about Amazon is that they will put a barcode on for you. So if you're doing a print version, you just need to leave an open space here for the barcode. There's so much for me to talk about. So if you, all right, let me focus on that. So you don't need to buy a barcode. And to be honest, I believe Ingram Spark also puts it on there. I've never had to purchase a barcode myself. I've always printed my books through Amazon or Ingram Spark. And if you're talking about print, if you want to see your book in bookstores and places like Barnes and Noble, they buy their books through Ingram Spark. So that is print, right? We're not talking ebooks. I'm just talking print.